Welcome back. The world could be standing by while the worst humanitarian disaster may have started in Yemen. The country has been cut off from huge food and aid deliveries because of a blockade imposed by the Saudi-led coalition, which accuses it of launching a missile that hit near the airport in Saudi Arabia. Before this time, fighting between rebel forces and Saudi-led coalition had left a dire situation in the country as food and medicine became short supply. The country had also been battling a cholera epidemic, said to be the worst so far. Last week, the coalition said it was considering lifting the blockade on air and sea deliveries, which eventually arrived on Saturday. But according to the United Nations, it's not enough to handle the crisis.
An aircraft carrying 1.9 million doses of vaccines landed in Yemen's Sana'a airport on Saturday. They are expected to reach at least 600,000 children, immunizing them against diseases including diphtheria, tuberculosis, and meningitis. But the United Nations says this is not enough to deal with the growing humanitarian crisis. UNICEF Regional Director for the Middle East, Jared Capeller, said many of the supplies were yet to reach children, but that this was only a small step towards dealing with the humanitarian crisis.
I reiterate my plea to everyone with a heart for children, indeed, not to prevent us from delivering what is urgently needed and massively needed. Yesterday was just a very small step. It is a very tiny step. It may sound huge, 1.9 million doses of vaccine, but there are many more millions of vaccines needed if we want to prevent that there will be a break in the routine immunization in the country. There are many more supplies needed.
The coalition fighting the armed Houthi movement in Yemen said last Wednesday that it would allow aid through the Red Sea ports of Hodeidah and Salif, as well as UN flights to Sana'a. International aid groups have welcomed the decision to let humanitarian aid, but say aid flights are not enough to avert a humanitarian crisis. About 7 million people face famine in Yemen, and their survival depends on international assistance. Aid workers were only allowed to arrive in Sana'a on Saturday after a nearly 3-week blockade by the Saudi-led coalition. The US-backed coalition closed air, land and sea access on November the 6th in a move it said would stop the flow of arms to the Houthis, who control much of northern Yemen from Iran. The action came after Saudi Arabia intercepted a missile fired towards Riyadh. Iran denied supplying weapons. Inside Yemeni hospitals is where one sees just an aspect of the impact of the blockade. In Al Tawra Hospital, the emergency room is crowded as people wait for treatment. Doctors say the situation here is dire. Medicine and other medical supplies are running low as a result of the blockade. Major routes used by the United Nations and other humanitarian organizations to provide necessary aid for the ailing population have been affected. The hospital, like many in the capital, are struggling to treat patients filling its corridors and is close to collapse. This includes babies in the hospital's neonatal intensive care unit and patients with kidney failure who need life-saving dialysis treatment. Sana'a and Al-Baida have joined the list of Yemeni cities without clean water due to the blockade, while some 2.5 million Yemenis now lack access to clean water in crowded cities. Other players in the crisis, such as Hezbollah, have denied the Iranian-backed group sent any weapons to Yemen and denied it was behind the ballistic missile attack launched at Riyadh from territory held by Yemeni Houthi rebels. Leader of the group, Saeed Hassan Nasrallah, called on followers to listen to recent comments by Israeli officials, which he said pointed to ties between Saudi Arabia and Israel. He criticized Arab foreign ministers who accused the group of terrorism. Regional tensions have risen in recent weeks between Sunni Muslim monarchy Saudi Arabia and Shiite Iran, whose rivalry wrought upheaval in Syria, Iraq, Yemen, and Bahrain. Others, such as China, have called for dialogue in ending the crisis, while France's President Emmanuel Macron has held talks with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman.